Welcome to Audio Branding, the hidden gem of marketing. Sound plays a more important role in human behavior and our decision-making than you may realize. In this podcast, I'll help you understand the art and science of sound so you can better influence others in business and your life. I'm your host, Jodi Krangle. Let's delve a little deeper. The audio that goes into your videos, like I know that you do occasionally use voiceover as well as music and sound and sound effects and that kind of thing. So do you get directives from the client as far as what they're looking for, or do you just sort of understand the emotional context and try to fit everything to that? Or what's the process of putting something together with visuals that match the audio or audio that matches the visuals?
Yeah. Usually I just ask the client, and usually the client is not already like a musician or a composer. So, they're really coming at it from a very, layperson experience. But on the other hand, everybody listens to music, right? There's no one that's like living totally under a rock and, what's music, right? There's no one like that. So, usually I'll just start by asking what words would describe the emotional feel you want? Is it exciting, confounding, intriguing, emotional? There are so many words, and that pretty much every client can easily come up with 3, 4, 5 words. And that will help me to communicate, to how I would do my searches for musical tracks. And I use a ton of different platforms. Usually it comes down to what the client's budget is. There's going to be one library I'll look for $10 tracks and a different library for $100 tracks.
Okay.
So you definitely have a difference in quality based on, the price. But I will always try to find something that's really going to help fit the client. And usually I'll start off with round 1. Okay, here's 5 tracks. Never want to give them 10, never want to give them 2. But I feel like, 3 to 5 is like a nice option. And usually they come back with and say, well, we really like number 1 and number 4, but this is what we don't like about number 1. This is what we don't like about number 4. And then I can go into a round 2, and it's sort of helping to filter it. I did have a project recently. It was for a nonprofit named Womankind, where the opening part of this animated video I did for them was about these really devastating statistics. 1 in 3 women will become the victim. 1 in 3 Asian women will become the victims of domestic violence. It's these statistics. But then it kind of changed tone, and we're 40 years ago, we started this organization that was founded by a social worker. And so we needed a real shift. And no track was able to really do that in the timing that we needed. So I ended up using 2 different tracks.
Okay.
And through the power of music editing, we were able to very smoothly, change that tone, partly masked by the voiceover artist that, came in that second track. But sometimes one music track isn't going to cut it, and you're going to have to come up with, the combination of 2 or 3 tracks or layering them.
Do you ever hire musicians to make it for you?
Oh my God, I wish. Oh, yeah? That would be amazing. There just is not the budgets for custom musical score. The most custom we will get is, me editing the music track.
Yeah.
To hire a musician and a recording artist to record that musician, let alone write the music. It's just, there's not the budgets for that. I wish there was.
It's too bad. But yeah, I get it. I totally do. And there are a lot of really interesting directories out there that can give you, selections of very good stuff. So, like you say, depending on your budget.
Yeah. And what's really nice is in a lot of the track libraries that are out there, they are starting to feature the composer more, where they will let
Good
you
to
look
know.
up their name and where they're from. And I remember just recently the track that I used for this nonprofit video, the composer was based in Ukraine, and I was like,
Oh,
oh, well, that's awesome. I'm very happy to be supporting a Ukrainian artist. So, it's nice to know that you're bringing on different people from different cultures,
oh yeah.
to add to the project. And would I have loved to have hired him to do a custom track? That would have been great. Yes.
Yeah, I know. It's hard. I know the budgets are tight everywhere,
Yeah.
so yeah, it can be really tough. But, speaking of a Ukrainian composer, what about the diversity in your voice talent? Because that must
Yeah.
be a thing too.
Oh, big time. I'm actually really supportive of getting diverse voices. And I mean, diverse voices at this point can mean so many things. It can mean by age, it can mean gender, it can mean race, it can mean neurodiversity, for someone to bring someone who's disabled. I actually just recently made a post on social media about how I joined this organization called 1% for the Planet, where companies make the pledge to donate 1% of their annual revenue. And I mean, there's big companies that do this, like Patagonia and Flickr and Yeti, but small companies like mine are doing it as well. And when I posted about it, I got tons of voiceover artists who actually commented and posted about, oh, we're so excited to see an animation studio join because we started a group called 1% for the Planet voiceover artists.
Yep.
And these did you know about this? Like
I did, yeah.
I'd never heard of it. So
Yeah,
I
it's
was
pretty
really
awesome.
excited. So I actually have a call with one of the women who founded it, to sort of talk about how I can bring on some of the people who are part of that group.
I
So
love it. Yeah.
yeah, it's like,
Thanks for doing that.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's like
No, it's a really fun initiative. Yeah, I've been hearing about it as well. So, and then I think what they do is they donate 1% of their earnings to some kind of charity or something that helps with the environment.
There's environmental partners that are all the nonprofits that you partner with. So
yeah, very exciting that people are actually taking a stand and doing something like that. I think
it's hard because, like, okay, I make animated videos. I can't, like, clean the carbon out of the air with my business, right? Like that's not what I do.
I can't do it with my voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's finally getting me to put sort of like, my money where my mouth is, and that, like, let's do things to help the environment. And now it's like, ooh, there's this really sort of structured way to do it.
Yes.
So I'm super excited about it and being part of this community.
Well, thank you for doing that. Yeah, I think it's really important that we all do something, and that's a great way to give back. I think it's fantastic. Yeah, so I wish you luck with that, definitely.
Thank you.
I want to touch on, because, we've been talking a little about the reluctance of clients to use sound in their branding and this kind of thing. So why do you think that is? Why do you think they have a problem paying attention to the sound that they put in their advertising? And it just doesn't seem to impress. I mean, you've mentioned briefly that you think they think it's a luxury.
Yeah.
And I think I think that it should not be a luxury. It should be part of what they're doing because, well, I mean, that's what my whole podcast is about. But at the very least, it is an unconscious way to reach them in a way that their visuals may not.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit part of a broader movement in the change of, like, how we consume music and audio. Go back 100 years, we all had to sit around, the radio or the record player, and it was this very, communal experience. And of course the speakers weren't great then either. And they started to get better. But, you then get into the sort of the end of the 20th century, and, that's, or early 21st century is when, we started developing, sort of the MP3. There's that famous line, the video killed the radio star, and MTV took off. Well, the MP3, in some ways killed the audio engineer. People often ask me, why did I leave audio recording and that whole career behind? And part of it was like people started to care less. And then I think because it's not so much that they started to care less, but the way they consumed the music had changed. Go back to the 80s when suddenly there were Walkmans and you were listening on these tiny headphones.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that was the tiny headphones, but then it became the tiny music file that went into the tiny headphones that went into your ear. And so it's like, it's been this very long progression of the technology has changed that has somewhat devalued the quality of the sort of the audio file, the audio sound and the quality of the audio. We're not all sitting around listening to speakers and music. I mean, even my own children, bless their hearts, I love them, but how do they consume content? They're just listening on tiny AirPod, headphones, or just listening to an iPad, which doesn't have great sound.
No, you're right. It's very fragmented, definitely.
Yeah, it's a little sad. Mm-hmm. We have a couple pairs of really good, high quality audio speakers in our house, but it's not how our children are going to listen to music. My husband and I enjoy music on it, but
yeah. Well, I mean, then again, MTV is no longer around, right?
That's true too, right?
So, and MP3s are still here.
Yeah, I don't know. The screens got smaller, the speakers got smaller.
Yeah.
Who's the name of that famous actress? There's that film where the guy's like, "Oh, I know you. You used to be big," and she says, "I am big. It's the pictures that got small, right?" It's like,
yes, yeah.
Everything used to be bigger and louder and sound good and look good, and everything got smaller and smaller, and we're compressing it down. I mean, think about what's coming next over the next 20, 30, 50 years. Are we going to be experiencing movies in, Google glasses or Netflix
That's a
glasses?
good point. Yeah.
Right? Or we're just going to be watching movies on these little tiny screens right in front of our eyeballs.
Well, they're tiny, but our vision would be filled with it, right? So
True.
To us, it would look really large.
Right. Or take it a step further, go into like an AR, VR kind of headset, right?
Sure,
It fills your entire peripheral vision.
Yeah.
It immerses you. It's kind of bigger in scope, but like smaller in experience. You're obviously not experiencing it communally.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely going to be different. I can see what you mean. But at the same time, I kind of think you got out of Hollywood at the right time.
Yes. I feel like I'll be saying to my kids, in my day, we went to movie theaters, right? It's like...
Yeah, I don't know the last time I went into a movie theater. That's we all sit around now watching movies or, on our streaming things on a computer, I do use headphones. I love the good music, the good sound. Part of what I've talked about on this podcast actually is how hard it is to actually hear the dialogue now. Which, considering when you were working on film scores, you might actually appreciate this. The problem with taking the movies and smalling them down, shrinking them, is that the dialogue, I think, is in the middle of
the center channel.
It's the center channel. So now it's being overwhelmed by what's happening on either side. And now people have to use the dialogue boxes, the closed captioning, in order to understand what's going on.
Yes.
So
Good
but
point.
that was the shrinkage. That was the problem. So I think maybe people are having a harder time hearing what's actually going on in these movies.
Right.
So unless you're sitting in a big movie theater, it doesn't hit the same way,
Right. Well, it's funny because I actually do go to the movie theaters because we love to take our kids to the theater. So I can tell you the last film I saw in the movie theater was Beetlejuice.
Oh, okay. How was that?
It was great. I mean, it's actually a good movie to see on a big screen. Obviously, like incredible special effects, great acting. The music is so fun and memorable from the original one.
You're going to laugh. My first date with my now husband was seeing the original Beetlejuice.
That's a great story. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
That's
a
why
good
I
movie.
love that movie. I love it. And I'm looking forward to seeing that one, but I have not been able to get to a movie theater
Go see it
or
in the theater.
yeah, I should. I should.
I
But you
mean,
were saying,
come
yeah.
on, shouldn't you guys go as like an anniversary date, right?
It would make sense. It would definitely make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you saw that in the movie theater and you really enjoyed the pageantry of it.
Of
You liked
course,
the
yeah.
sound and it worked well for you as far as
Yeah.
the sound was
Oh,
concerned.
definitely. It
Yeah.
was great. I mean, oh God, who's the director of Beetlejuice and Beetlejuice? I'm gonna draw a
Oh,
blank.
God, can I remember? I can't remember now. So,
It's the same guy who did Edward Scissorhands.
oh, another great movie.
Yes. But I mean, he's such an artist, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, you know, everything from the visual effects, the costumes, everything
Hmm.
in the design. I mean, it was beautiful. It was fun. I
Oh,
mean,
Tim Burton.
Tim Burton,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
Tim Burton.
We just had our remote producer come in for a moment. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. I'm drawing such a blank.
Yes,
Sorry about
that's
that.
okay. I was too. Yeah, Tim Burton. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's a true artiste, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was also with my 10-year-old daughter and her best friend, and like it was so fun. She had seen Beetlejuice before, of course, on an iPad and on Netflix, but
Yeah.
it was fun to, you know, see in the theater with them and enjoy all that. And of course, you know, we were in one of those movie theaters where the seats recline, they were
Oh,
leather,
the
back,
nice
you know,
ones.
yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
you know, we
Yeah.
got to sort of still have the home comfortability, but with the quality of sound and the big picture, and you know, it was fun.
That is
And
so great.
it's an experience.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that won't get eliminated.
Yeah, I mean, we can hope. I think it's hard for people to think of going to a movie theater these days, which is unfortunate because that's where you get the full experience. But at the same time, a lot of the movies that are coming out are like straight to Netflix.
Yep. Yep.
And then the sound gets completely drowned out. Like, I don't know what happens with them when they make them there, but
Yeah. My town used to have 2 movie theaters and they both closed.
oh no.
So one before the pandemic and one right after the pandemic. So
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
What does that say, right? That like a town of like 16,000 people that used to support 2 movie theaters could no
Yeah.
longer do that. So
Oh, that's too bad. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's a symptom, I think, of a lot of us staying home and watching movies on our computers.
yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, Hollywood changes, right? Just like the music industry.
Yeah. There's actually a great documentary called like How Music Became Free.
Mm.
Eminem is featured a lot in it, and he talks a lot about his experience of like his albums like just suddenly like showing up on the internet, and just the whole idea of like how the MP3 came about and the technology behind it. It's a fascinating documentary. I think you can catch it on maybe HBO Max or Prime. Prime, I think it's on Prime.
Yeah.
But it's really good. It's
Yeah. I should
hearing
look for
others.
that one, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a songwriting resource on the web for quite a number of years, from 1995 until 2016. And I saw the creation of Napster and what it
Right.
did. Yeah. So for songwriters, not even just for musicians, but for
Right.
songwriters, it decimated everything.
Right. Yeah.
It just totaled everything. Like it was just like like I don't know, like Godzilla walking through a city. Like it just yeah.
Stomped it out. Yep.
Yeah. It really did a number on everything. Yeah. And now, you know, we expect it.
Yep. Well, that's the
So-
thing. It's like it's just the way music is consumed. My kids went to summer camp and they wanted to like bring music with them, but they're not allowed to have electronic devices. Like they can't bring a phone. And my son was like, "Oh, I'll just take my phone. I don't, you know." And I'm like, "No, you don't understand. Like you're not gonna have internet." And they're like, "Well, how do I get the music from like Spotify like on my phone?" I'm like, "You can't." without like just the whole concept. Like you used to carry like a record or even a cassette or a CD, and it was physical, and you had it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we
You
sound like
owned
a bunch
it.
of old fogies now.
I
This
know.
is so terrible. Okay, we got to talk about something else. Let's go back to our AI conversation and how hip we are to know what's going on in AI, right?
It's totally okay. I have a feeling that the people listening will totally understand.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think that our experience is unique, definitely.
Yeah.
But I do want to sort of get a little philosophical and ask you why you think sound matters. Because, I mean, we're talking about the changes that have gone on and, you know, how it's all different now. You know, do you still really like listening to music? Do you immerse yourself in sound?
Absolutely. And I think that this actually goes, we're going to tie it back to the beginning here.
Okay.
It's like that first experience I had when I was 16, where I saw that scene in that movie theater, and it made me like, you know, want to clap. And it was music. Yes, it comes through your ears, but it's like, it really comes like through your heart. And, you know, and then it sort of, it spreads throughout your body, and then it hits your brain. And, you know, there's the emotional part, there's the thinking part, there's just the visceral bodily experience. Music it's just so, not just music, sound is so powerful. And despite me being an animator and a visual artist now, at the roots, I am really a sound person. And as much as I do get frustrated when clients, you know, oh, we don't want to spend a lot of money on music, or, oh, we don't want to, you know, get a custom voiceover artist. We just want to use the AI, you know, the AI voice. I really try to push the sound and say, let's spend money on sound, and try to tell them to do that, because there is this, like I said, emotional thinking, just full body experience that you get when you hear something and it's good. And it can work in the other direction when you hear bad sound, right? It's like, oh, it affects everything. Let's say you're listening to like a really great interview, a podcast interview even, and like, but the sound is terrible. It reflects on the host and the guest that the sound is terrible. It doesn't matter what they're saying. The sound is terrible. And you unconsciously take that feeling and put it on who is talking.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, you do beautiful work. So
Thank
why
you.
ruin that with bad
Yeah.
sound? Like, it
Yeah.
just doesn't make sense to me. You're kind of taking the visuals and tossing them in the fire. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I actually recently got hired by a video production company, because we often I'll partner my animation studio with a video production company who's doing live video, and we'll provide the animated graphics. And one of the reasons they hired me was they were like, we used to, even though we film, we also worked in sound, and we could hear the quality of your animated work with the quality of the sound.
Oh, good.
And I was like, oh my God, like, thank you. Like, there was just this immediate bond between this company and I
they paid attention.
Yes.
Good for
yes,
them.
Awesome. I'll give them a shout out. Dam and West. They're a great video production company who does really good sound quality work. So, but great visuals as well.
Fantastic. Yeah. And hopefully you can supply a URL. Maybe we can include it in the show notes.
Happy to do so.
Yeah. So I do want to ask you before, because we're coming to the end here, but I want to ask you what you're working on now that you can talk about.
Yes. So we've just been wrapping up actually a few projects. One is the animated video for this gala for this nonprofit. I'll actually be releasing it on YouTube this coming week. Although when you hear it, when you hear this interview, it'll be already out for a few months. We also just did a really cool display graphics for a trade show booth called Alloy Women's Health. It's a women's health company that prescribes menopause medications, and they were at an event just like just recently called Swell. And it was all supporting women's health. It was at an event in New York City. So
that's a long time coming.
Yeah, exactly. And what I loved about these two projects that I just wrapped up, it was all about women and about supporting women who are victims of gender-based domestic violence and women who are going through menopause. And it was like, oh my God, like awesome. Like I would like to do more projects like this. So yeah, those are two very exciting projects that we've just
Wonderful.
finished.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing those when they come out and hearing them too.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. The one at the event has no sound at the Women's Health. And this is a good example of like where it was like it so should have animated, fun sound to go with it. But it was at this big trade show, right? Where there was like people walking around, you'd have never heard the sound.
Yeah, it's hard. At a trade
sound.
show, I imagine also you need to be kind of careful about that because people going by might get annoyed by something. It's
But the gala video has some very good sound in it.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. So if people want to reach out and get in touch with you or hire you for a project, how would they do that?
Yes. The best place is to go to my website, 87streetcreative.com, 87th street spelled out, creative.com. Or you can also just contact me on my email, Sherene, Sherene, at 87streetcreative.com.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sherene. This has been a real pleasure, and I appreciate that you actually pay attention to sound. So thank you.
Thank you for having this podcast. I am just so honored to be included, but just in awe of you creating this podcast and recognizing the value of sound. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, why not tell a friend about this podcast? It's available in all the usual locations. Until next time.